The United States Declaration of Independence says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The founders of the United States understood that happiness is given to us by God. But what happens when we take the gift without thanking the giver? Post-Christian man has decided that he can achieve happiness without God's help. In this video, we will see how that is working out for him. We will examine the ways in which each person tries to live the dream by acquiring a collection of wonderful experiences with accompanying photographic evidence shared on social media. First among these is travel. As Milan Kundera said, life is elsewhere. The bored and restless soul seeks new sensory stimulation. Seeing the sights, tasting the local cuisine, hearing an exotic language, feeling a new heat or a new wind on our skin. There is nothing wrong in this. I did plenty of travelling around Asia in my youth. When I was backpacking around India in my 20s, I met a lot of others doing the same. The conversation would always revolve around where people had been and where they were going. Some of these people had been on the road for a year or two. They weren't even enjoying themselves anymore, but they were hooked on travel. The road had become their home. They were still looking for that special place where they would find the answer. After about 2 months, I found myself avoiding Westerners, as it was always the same conversation. I found an obscure Tibetan monastery, and an old monk said to me, "What are you all hoping to find here? It's the same wherever you go. You need to fight your demons, not run from them." It was time to go home and get on with life. Another part of living the dream is sex. Freud said that sexual repression causes neurosis. But has our huge exposure to sexual images made us happier? Social media focuses on the glamour of the affair, but not on the misery of the one who was dumped or needed an abortion. Sex has become such an important part of modern life that many people define themselves according to their sexual preference, as if that were the most important thing about them. Isn't exploring our identity as children of God more fruitful than focusing only on our sexual identity? Some people feel that they've been made miserable by being misgendered, and conclude that their route to happiness involves the surgical alteration of their sexual organs. There are many heart-wrenching accounts given by people who found that such procedures made them even more miserable. There is an irony here. Transgender people sometimes say, "Can't you accept me for who I am?" But are they accepting themselves? Perhaps having surgery and hormone treatment implies a non-acceptance of who one is. This is one of the first lessons of psychotherapy. Learn to accept yourself for who you are. And it is a good lesson. Is therapy a route to happiness? It can certainly be a positive thing. It can help us resolve issues from our past which have had a negative impact on our lives. But therapy can only take us so far. Yes, it can help us shed negative influences. It can take us from a minus score to a 0. But once the issue is solved, what next? Therapy can help rip out the weeds of resentment, but it does not plant the flowers of true peace. A good therapist will tell us when the work is finished and the weeds are out. The mistake occurs when people become addicted to talking about themselves and see therapy as a substitute for religion. Therapy is different from religion because it is person-centered. It is all about me, my relationships, my childhood, my emotional needs. Sometimes an exploration of emotional issues is mistaken for a spiritual path. Any decent religion will tell you that the emotions can only be the first rung of the ladder. In fact, the emotional life is the precise opposite of the divine life. The word emotion comes from the Latin emotus, to move away, to stir up. It implies movement. God, on the other hand, is stable, the unmoved mover. As people progress in the spiritual life, they find this stability, this inner peace. As our culture moves ever further from God, we are losing sight of this lesson. Most social media is designed to stimulate our emotions, to stir us up. This makes our souls ever more restless and leads them even further away from God. Children are exposed to this kind of stimulus from an ever younger age, but we do not see the danger as we have neglected the wisdom of God. A similar mistake is made by spirituality. It focuses on the self and on the emotions. It explores the self, but forgets the source of the self, God. As Chesterton said, John's worship of his inner light soon becomes John's worship of himself. Spirituality tells us to follow our own inner vision, but only one who lives fully in God's light can see clearly where he is going. Aren't most of us still walking in darkness, dominated by our emotions, lacking self-control? Lost in a dark wood, why do we refuse to use the map drawn by those who have reached the sunlit pastures, the collective wisdom of the Church? I suppose it is pride. Adam and Eve trusting in their judgment rather than God's. To conclude, we have looked at some of the ways modern man seeks happiness: travel, sex, therapy, spirituality. But we have confused pleasure with happiness. A collection of pleasurable experiences does not make for true happiness. After the high must come the low. The feeling of emptiness remains. And we have forgotten that we cannot find peace solely by focusing on ourselves. Man has a corporate dimension, and we develop ourselves through our relationships with each other and with God. We have forgotten the ancient teaching: seeking our own happiness apart from God does not bring happiness. If we make happiness the goal of our life, what happens when it departs, as it surely must sometimes? We ask ourselves, why can't I be happy? What is wrong with me? What is wrong with society? We pile misery on misery, and all meaning is lost. God's way is different. The goal is not happiness, but to serve God and grow closer to Him. We accept that the journey involves some pain, and we do not always ask God to remove the burden, but to help us carry it lightly. Pain does not defeat us because our goal is higher. We learn not to pay too much attention to our emotions. We know that they come and go like the clouds. The paradox is this: the less we focus on our own happiness, and the more we focus on God, the greater is our peace, the peace that is beyond understanding. As Christ said, "He who loses his life for my sake will find it."